Welcome to Arts Dynamics Talks and our weekly live stream podcast series. Every Thursday between 12 and 1 Swedish time, I tune in online to speak with the movers and shakers at the very forefront of creativity, tech, and business for impact. And my name is Sofie Marin. I'm the founder of Arts Dynamics, and it is such a great honor, a great privilege to speak with someone today who I have a feeling that this might go on a little bit longer than an hour. We'll see. For people tuning in live to join us, know that we actually do have a comment section below this live stream. We would love to know who you are, where you're coming from, what you're up to, and if you have any questions as well. We might bring one or two onto the stage, the questions, maybe for us to have a conversation around. So let me give you a formal introduction to our guest of honor today, coming in all the way from Greece. So Kremidas-Courtney. Chris is a senior advisor to EU, NATO, and the hybrid COE Euro-Atlantic Resilience Center, and collaborate with governments and institutions on system-level approaches to security, resilience, and technology transformation. Engaging with people working on system-level change across technology and governance and security, especially where existing assumptions are no longer valid. They're also a science fiction author, a musician, and a visual artist. Oh my God, you are in for a treat. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sophie. It's great to join you.
It is absolutely brilliant. Hannah Linderståhl, I had her on last year, and we started talking about the cultural firewall. And when she and I talked about who do we need to connect with, who are the people who understand this heart and soul level, but also work at top level worldwide, she said, you need to speak with Chris. And here we are, and you're live with me today. So what made you, first and foremost, tell us more about who you are for people who might not know you just yet.
Well, first of all, any time you mention Hannah's name, I smile because I have such great respect and admiration for Hannah and what she does. So I'm honored that she suggested me. So I'm Chris Kremidas-Courtney. I'm here on the island of Kefalonia in Greece. That's it behind me. I am obviously, you can tell by my accent, I'm American and Greek. Here in Europe, I do all that work that Sophie mentioned and more. And my real emphasis is on, lately in this conversation, is on technology, democracy, and human agency. So this is where I find myself. I had a long career in government, and then I left that and went more into academia and consulting, and keeping a very close eye on technology developments today and how they're impacting us. And so a lot of my work is in that space. I do write science fiction. I'm working on a third book right now. I'm halfway through, and some parts of it take part in Stockholm. So every time I visit Sweden, I always find like a little cafe. I'm like, I'm going to put a scene in the book right here. And I'm going to, there's a certain kind of coffee that everyone's drinking here. I'm going to put that in the book. So that's my Swedish connection is always in there. Music and visual arts, definitely not at the professional level. I do it for love and not for money, because no one would pay for those two things. But yeah, it's great to join you here. And so where would you like to begin, Sophie?
Well, I have so many questions for you. Obviously, it would be great to touch upon policy level what you are seeing, but also one thing I don't want us to miss to talk about is also the importance of cognitive self-determination within arts and culture, and also, how you can survive and thrive as a cultural entrepreneur. So we mustn't miss that. So let's begin with, I know you were in Brussels recently, and also you are working on some things right now. So why don't you just let us know a little bit what is your focus right now?
Great. So my focus right now is mainly, I've been writing sort of my technology and democracy manifesto. I write a lot, and I'm always writing and publishing these things, and I wanted to sort of bring them all together into like, Chris, what are your ideas on this in one package? And so trying to package all my thoughts on this into one, I call it a manifesto because maybe it will become that, is where I find myself today. And a lot of that is also because of your questions, Sophie, over the last few weeks. So thank you for pushing me in this direction, or pulling me in this direction. So I think where I find myself now is, I think, the future is a choice. I am a futurist, and so I think it's always good to remember the future is a choice, and the future cannot be predicted, but it can be chosen. And so my question is always, are we choosing it, or is it being chosen for us? So, we're not passive observers of technology transformation. It's not happening to us. We're making it happen as well. We're all active participants in a series of political, economic, and moral choices. And so for me, that's cognitive self-determination starts at the human level, and then sort of at the societal level, and then I come back to how it is for culture and cultural firewall. So I think one thing now is that we're facing is the choices we're making now are going to determine if AI and all these new technologies, like neurotechnology, all sorts of things, will they bend toward greater equality and human flourishing, or will they move in the direction of a concentration of power, the erosion of human agency, and the hollowing out of democracy? And so why do I think that? Well, if you can see next to me, I'm kind of old school. I print off the scientific papers and I go over them with a highlighter. In many ways, I'm still acting like a graduate student with these things. It's an old habit. But I think what we're looking at now is what I call curated reality. So this is how social media and AI are reshaping human agency. So, AI is increasingly defining the conditions in which we form our opinions. So when you go to search for something online, it used to be you get a bunch of returns. Now you get an AI summary. Unless you have found a search engine that doesn't use this, which I've found, Kagi, there's others, it's sort of forced upon you. It's always there. You can't even use WhatsApp without some AI assistant popping up or wanting to, can I write your note back to your friend? It's like, no, I don't want that. But so AI is increasingly defining the conditions where we're making up our mind and where we're thinking about things, to include our political opinions. And so even before AI, social media was already creating this reality organized around hard binaries, right? You like something or you reject it. Follow or block, amplify or denounce. Do you belong? Are you expelled? And so online content was designed to reward fast, emotionally charged, morally simplified reactions. And the reason for that is when we talk about the algorithm, it's all designed to get more information about us. So the more it can force us to choose between binary choices, the more information they collect about us, the more valuable their data set. So again, if you're not paying for social media, you are the product, and this is how they're shaping the product. So we're in this environment where we were already being pushed into this binary choice all the time, and now AI is sort of serving up responses. Well, you could look all the way down the page and click on several things you found and make up your mind, or you could just click on the AI summary, right? And that's very inviting if you don't have a lot of time. And so what's happening is big tech is filtering what people see. It's amplifying what engages, what excites people. It's going to amplify those things, and it's going to throttle things that challenge what we believe. And so we're seeing a curated version of reality when we go online. And sadly, people are spending a lot of time online right now. I mean, look at us right now. We're online talking. And so it's creating a version of reality that most people are moving through, and they don't realize it's being curated, right? Maybe you have a feeling like, it seems like a few years ago we had a lot more variety of choices, didn't we? But you can't quite put your finger on why that is. And I think we're seeing it online now, why that's happening. We have things like conversational AI. This is an AI that's specifically designed to talk to us and designed to interact with us and learn from us. So it speaks to us, we speak back, it listens to our response, the words we choose in whatever language, and then it learns. It's learning how to sell us something. It's learning how to convince us. It's learning what we fear, what we love, all these things. And so the risk, I think, is that we're walking on a path where we think we understand the world around us. We think we're choosing that direction ourselves, but it's not clear right now if we really are. Because do we know all of the paths in front of us that we can choose? So that's, a big part of it. The other one I would say is that the influence of the political persuasion of conversational AI is remarkably powerful. There's a lot of studies the last few years. Oxford researchers found that AI persuasion. So AI persuasion in conversational AI means that you can set up an AI system. Maybe it's to sell Volvos. Maybe it's to sell people on voting for Sofie Marin to be in the Swedish parliament. I don't know. Either, whatever you choose. But it can conduct millions of individual conversations simultaneously that are tailored to each individual person. And what the Oxford researchers found was that conversational AI was 4 times more effective than traditional advertising to change political attitudes. Now, then they looked at, well, what if we took an AI and trained it specifically to persuade people, right? They just took an average conversational AI that wasn't designed to persuade people. When they design it to persuade people, now its effectiveness is not 4 or 10% in changing people's minds. Now it's 25%. That's huge. That's a huge impact on humans. And so I think there's one thing important to remember, and that is that what an AI is trained on is more important than what it produces. So most of our laws cover what AI produces and not what it's designed to do. So I think you can start to see, and political parties or big manufacturers and marketing companies, they have this capability exists now, and it's very, very, very cheap. So you can reach millions of people simultaneously for very low cost, right? So it's the cost of doing this mass persuasion is no longer what it used to be. I think one thing that's concerning, and Sofie, you and I have talked about this, and that is if we have a curated reality, who is doing the curating? Well, the curating is being done by the wealthiest people on Earth. The Elon Musks, the Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, all these people. So you think about it, if we were sitting in a conference room, there's few, you couldn't even, a number of people who own these companies that have this much power, they wouldn't even fill a conference room table, right? This is how few we're talking about. So, and some of them, we've seen them, especially Elon Musk, are actively using these tools to shape political outcomes. So, we look at that, they're using these tools to shape political outcomes, and their interests are often anti-democratic. So, for us, the choice is, do we want a world where the information environment is privately owned and shaped by the people who own it, while the rest of us move through it, believing that we're thinking freely? I think that's the other thing, is most of us believe we're making our own choices. And I think we need to ask ourselves, is that still happening? So I think the other thing is, so to me, this is, to wrap up this point, AI governance is a question of power, right? It's about power, because it requires a genuine political decision about who does the information environment belong to. And then we need to have the courage to act on the answer. Who should it belong to? If it belongs to us, then what are we doing to make that happen?
Yeah, I love that we're able to have this conversation. And for people tuning in live, you might also be listening to the replay now as a podcast. This is a discussion we're having in real time. These past few days, things are moving so fast. And for us to be able to have Chris on to share what we're talking about right now from your lens, because you've got so many different perspectives on this. This is what I often find. It's just, I find that this is a very important conversation that we are able to have and host today. So let's go deep with this one. And on that note, I just thought that if you saw me looking at my computer slowly, I wanted to recommend, I listened to a podcast the other day. It was a Diary of a CEO podcast, DOAC, with Stephen Bartlett. And he spoke with Mo Goddard, AI expert. And they had a great conversation about AI and what we're facing and where we're heading. And then Stephen said something that for me was like, yeah, that happened to me too. It's when Claude tells you to go to bed. Have you had that, Chris? When you go into Claude and you write something, and then Claude says, well, that's good, well and dandy. Here you are now, Sofie, go to bed. It's time to go to bed now. It's time to go to rest. And Stephen addresses this during the podcast. So suddenly, Claude in this case, and I say to all AI, I do come in peace. I want to say that. But we also need to have a conversation about you as AIs. So Claude tells you to go to bed, gives you instructions or make assumptions about you, and is prompting you as a human to do certain things. So, and they said, and they had a conversation about that on this podcast, that this is actually a thing. Many people are noticing the same things. I was just curious, Chris, have you noticed it on your end? Are you being told to go to bed or anything else by AI?
No, I don't have that experience with it. I think I'm a little too bossy. Like, and if anything, if I did interact with an AI, I will tell it, challenge me. Don't just agree with me.
Yeah.
So a couple of things here that are going on. I think the first thing I wanted to mention this earlier is that today, in June of 2026, we humans are outnumbered on the internet. We are the minority on the internet. So when you go online, you encounter information. There's a better than 50% chance that it's not created by a human. Or if you're interacting with something, there's a better than 50 chance that it's not human. 74% of all web pages now contain at least some AI generated content. So I think and obviously think about what that means for human agency. We think we're interacting with humans. We're constantly being surveilled. There's information gathered about us, and that information is being used to influence us. It's something as simple as going to bed, right? Usually it's my wife telling me that, turn off the lights, put that book down, right? So, which I love her for that. But I think, Sofie, this is a great example of conversational AI telling you go to bed. It knows you, it knows where you live, it knows your habits. Hey, Sofie, it's time to go to bed. So, I think this is also, what are we losing in all of this? And I think part of it is the erosion of independent thought. So, Stanford researchers found that most of these AIs were really affirming everything you say. When you talk to an AI, does it ever challenge you? Right?
Yeah,
Unless
for
you
me
tell it
it does.
to.
Yeah,
It
for me it
doesn't.
does.
It doesn't. Yeah. Some of them do, but in most cases, people are being affirmed by it. So this is something we call sycophantic AI. It's, oh, Sofie, you're the most brilliant, beautiful person in the world, and everything you do is art. And it's like that best friend you wish you always had, who might be good or bad for you, right? But I think what happens here, and numbers of studies have shown this sycophantic AI, and the result is this loop where affirmation drives trust. It's like, oh, you like me, I'm going to trust you more, AI. And that trust drives reliance, and that reliance reduces the likelihood of independent correction. So we have a lot of people using AI, and they're very confident in judgments that they didn't form themselves. And so, this is where we get to things like, and this is a brand new study that came out, I want to say the 16th of May. And, again, one of my paper, print it, highlight it, think about it, mark it up. Brilliant study. And this was Oxford. I want to say this is Oxford and Stanford together. They found that AI assistance degrades independent capacity. So people who are using AI perform worse, and they give up more quickly when you take the AI away, even if they only use it a little while. So we get spoiled very fast. We like, wait, that was easy. I felt brilliant using that. Wait, you want me to do it the old way? This reminds me of being a child in the United States in the early 1970s when pocket calculators were out. And the teachers would say, if you don't you have a calculator on your desk in the mathematics class, because that means you're not doing the math. And they were always looking, do you have a calculator? It feels like that now, that every computer is doing that thing. With AI, it's doing that for us. So when we stop using these cognitive skills, they atrophy. Lifelong habits of questioning things and tolerating uncertainty. Right? Can we tolerate ambivalence? Can we sit with ambivalence and not decide something? In my first book on disinformation, and whenever I teach a course on disinformation, I always ask people, can you take a bite of food and not decide if you like it or not? Can you sit with that? And how long can you do that? Can you listen to a bit of music and not decide if you like it or not? Can you think about the rhythm and the texture of the sound and the soundscape? Can you consider it but not make a judgment about it? And most people today have a very difficult time doing that because we're being conditioned to make rapid fire yes no decisions about things. And so that all existed before AI came along. And so this is this is the brand new study. I'm sorry, the earlier study was from a few months ago. These studies are coming out fast and furious. So the new study I'm really thinking about this week is the one that did come out on the 16th of March from Oxford. And it showed that after regular use of sycophantic AI, so the AI that just loves everything you do, people are just as likely to seek advice from that AI as they are from their closest friends and family. Mm-hmm. And so what that means is it's not because the AI got better, it's because and human interactions started to feel like too much of an effort. It's just, well, I don't want to call my mother again. It's just easy. Let me go online and ask the chat bot. And so real relationships, think about this. Real human relationships require effort, don't they? We have to take some risk. Maybe we're not understood. I have to explain myself. The honesty of someone who really knows you saying, yeah, Chris, but is that really you? And I think the other one is that, human relationships require reciprocal needs. So if you and I and Sophie are talking and I say, look, it's brilliant and sunny here in Greece, and you say, yes, Chris, and it's raining here in Stockholm, and I'm going to feel bad because it's raining where you are, AI doesn't have that, right? AI has no needs of its own. So all it does is meet your needs. It's constantly thinking about your needs. So what's happening is that people are dumping all of their emotions into the AI. They're, trauma dumping, as psychologists talk about. And so you can trauma dump on an AI, and one of your friends might get tired and go, you know what? I need to go take a nap. This is a lot for me to absorb. AI doesn't say that. It just keeps absorbing all of your trauma. You can unload onto it, and it doesn't unload back. And so I can see why this is appealing, but that's also not entirely healthy for human relationships. And so what happens is the sycophantic AI is delivering the feeling of being understood. Not that it understands you, but it makes you feel like you're understood. And for a lot of people, that feels good. But, in the same Oxford study, and God bless Oxford for doing this, one of the academics who did it, is that the people were also spending time with people in their lives, not just AI, but they felt less satisfied with human interaction. Imagine that, less satisfied with being around your best friends, that they preferred the AI. And the result, you think about it, it's devaluing human relationships. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Can I interject? But
absolutely.
Because what you say, what I'm picking up, in addition to what you're saying, is also many of these entrepreneur gurus in the entrepreneurial sphere, the most successful entrepreneurs and high performers and high achievers, they too talk about the importance of, selecting who you surround yourself with. I only spend, time with people who I feel that they, there is this reciprocation. How do you say that? Yeah, what it goes both ways. They don't spend time or hang out with low value people. And I do like this. Mark now in the air, because I notice a pattern of these influential people telling people to stay away from friends and from family and from people who cannot prove that they give you something back in return related to you as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just felt like, I wonder if they are a little bit linked, Chris. Could they potentially be, or even the algorithms pushing it somehow?
It's not an interruption at all. Thank you for that. I think it is, if you're an entrepreneur, can you do what you do if you don't have your finger on the pulse of the market, right? Don't you need to, that's one great thing about entrepreneurs is that there's an extra set of sensors that successful entrepreneurs have, that what's happening in society, what's happening in the market, what do people like, what do they not like. It's like, entrepreneurs require this extra sensitive nervous system that tells them what's happening in the market. They can feel it before they see the numbers, right? I think using AI a lot robs you of that, because I think you're not going to feel that. You're not going to have that same feel if you're more comfortable talking to the AI that tells you that, hey, Sven, your idea is great. It's fantastic. Whereas your best friend might say, I don't know. Maybe that works in Malmo, but I don't think anyone else will buy it, right? You need that, right? We need to surround ourselves not only with people who support us, but people who think highly enough of us and respect us enough to tell us the truth when it's hard. We need that. Or just to receive messages from society and the market about what we're trying to do. Some part of being an entrepreneur is being ahead of that curve and saying, well, the society doesn't know they need it yet. That's fantastic. That's great. But I still think if you're leaning too hard into AI as a business advisor, as a mental health counselor, I think we're losing something. And especially for entrepreneurs, I think you'd lose a lot. And I think what's happening with what I just described is in many ways, people are selecting these AI systems. These AI systems are hollowing us out, but people are selecting them because they feel good. And this is leading to alienation from society, from friends. It's leading to alienation within society. And, democracy depends on us being able to engage with other perspectives, to make judgments that are our own. We all think we're making up our own mind. And so these systems that are designed to reduce friction and just accelerate agreement, they're eroding what, the conditions that democracy requires. And I think for democracy, we need that. But for entrepreneurs and artists, there's even a greater need for it. So I think when we think about, the title of your talks, which I love, Cultural Firewall, I think this is absolutely vital to the cultural firewall, Sofie.
Mm. Yeah, and speaking of cultural firewall, when we've had some amazing conversations about what it means, what does a cultural firewall mean? When you heard about it the first time, or when we started talking about it, what came to mind for you? What is a cultural firewall in your mind?
I think the future we're inventing, it will be shaped by the stories we tell, the music we make, however good that music is, and the art we bring into being. And so I think it's too important some things like this are too important to leave to machines. I think if we as a civilization, or even as any society, if we outsource our creativity, we lose our soul. These are the things that make us human. Think about the earliest days of humans where stories were passed on verbally. Don't eat that mushroom. That mushroom will kill you. This one will keep you alive. This is the best place to take water from the river. It's the cleanest, right? The basic things to the earliest cave art or any kind of creations we made. I think, if we outsource that to machines, then why are we even human at that point? So I think, the question is not whether something like AI generated art can be beautiful. I mean, we were talking about this before the show. When you look at a piece of AI art, you can admire the proportions, the coloring and whatnot, but I don't feel anything when I look at that. I feel nothing. It doesn't feel, I don't feel anything because it's not human. And you can play those little tricks. Oh, can you tell if it's human or not? Most of the time, I just if this art makes me feel nothing, there's a good chance it's AI. That doesn't mean that other people can't make art that make me feel nothing, right? But that's life. That's human life. So I think the question is, are we making a conscious choice about AI's role in our society, or are we letting companies make the choice for us? So I go back to, cultural firewall was, if you look at the recommendations, so the UN did a report on AI's impact on culture. It came out, I think, November of 2025. And 2 of the 4 key findings were about culture. The first one was that it was undermining cultural rights. So, scooping up data, scooping up art and science fiction novels and poetry and everything without attribution, without compensation. That's obviously one, right? That's one we often talk about in the arts world. And the second one was the erosion of creativity itself. That AI means we humans are losing our creative ability. And I think, creativity is not just for creative people. Everyone needs it. I think every human needs it. I think if you're a true believer in arts and music and whatnot, you believe that everyone has it in them to be creative. Everyone, even the person you think has no creativity in them, they have it. Maybe the conditions haven't been right. And so, I think the biggest thing, think about where culture brought us today. Humanity, we're not perfect. We made a lot of mistakes, right? But the reason we know we made mistakes is because we remembered it. We had art remind us of it. We had protest songs that told us something was wrong. We had stories of poverty, of the injustice of poverty. Think about Victor Hugo's works, right? Think about any of these great authors. We have centuries of cultural practice that represent how societies, how we know ourselves. This is how we transmit ideas across generations and maintain that imaginative capacity to imagine a different future. So I think the other aspect is that, artists themselves, I hope there's some artists, that includes to me musicians, artists, musicians, writers, all kinds of people. Artists hold up the mirror to society so we can learn and grow. And what happens when no one's holding up that mirror? Right? Can AI hold up that mirror to us the way a human can? I don't think so. And so if creatives can't sustain their practice in a world flooded with AI slop, I think we're going to. I always think of agriculture, so I think that culture is the soil. That's the soil, and out of that soil grows future culture and citizens. And I think if we lose that, what kind of soil do we have in the future? What's that going to produce in the future?
Yeah, this is so important that we're having this conversation right now. Because I wonder also, is there room to make mistakes? Is there room to totally suck at whatever art form you're trying out? For us, arts, music, culture is a way to express ourselves as human beings. But if everything is being recorded and documented, in your own, stages where you try things out and put online for everybody to judge and to make comments about, that means also that you start to self-censor or might not even go into it in the first place. So I'm wondering, or actually it's dawning upon me, and I had a conversation yesterday with a cultural entrepreneur who wanted to create rooms without technology and was wondering about their place in the world and where that might fit in. And I'm just saying, because this person might actually be watching now, what we're talking about right now could be your way to position yourself in the future. Because as Chris says, for us to be able to express ourselves, and this is the cultural firewall, that's why it's so important to be empowered as creators, but we need rooms, we need places and spaces to also explore in a safe environment. That comes to me very strongly, Chris.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. It always strikes me, I'm 61 now, so I don't always know exactly how the younger kids are living, but I like to, kind of peek around and hey, where do kids go dance now? Are they dancing? What are they doing? And you try to walk, hey, is anyone dancing anymore? I noticed, for example, here in Greece, young kids don't really dance anymore. There's not a lot of dancing. There's a few places still doing it. There's always the diehards, God bless them. But and the more people I talk to, especially with psychologists, they say, well, mobile phones are the reason why a lot of people don't dance, because they're afraid someone will make a video of them dancing. So when you think about dancing, and I hope, dance is such an art form, and dance, of all the things that can help you maintain your cognitive capability in older age, dance is one of the best. Numerous studies show that, and that's in my first book. Dance is one of the best. So if people are afraid to, it gets to the self-censoring you talked about. If people are afraid to dance because they think someone will make fun of them and make a video, that's incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. That free expression, to not care and move your body to the music and express whatever that expression is, without judgment and especially without self-judgment. So the idea that people are recording you and making fun of you is terribly sad, because I think it's sad if humans aren't dancing and creating and drawing pictures and telling stories. So I absolutely agree. I also think you're onto something there about, I really think, and I've wondered about this, to me, the next big market is, we have organic produce, or as we call it here, or food, is organic everything else. Right? Organic situations that are not that are not mediated by technology, where you can dance somewhere where there are no cell phones, because all it takes is one person to kind of ruin it. But how do you create places where people feel safe, where they know what they're encountering is human? If you have a website and everything on your website is human organic, and you remember like those no GMO symbols we had for food, or vegan, if you're vegetarian or vegan, we have the green V to tell us something's vegan or gluten free. Why can't we make that gluten free the same, AI free? Oh, this is an
Yeah.
AI free zone, a tech free zone. I think that is where the growth is. As I
Yeah.
think people want that. I think AI slop and surveillance and the things that are inhibiting people's creativity and people's ability to feel free to be themselves, or just to feel free, period. I think we don't have enough of those. Those spaces are shrinking. And so if I was an entrepreneur today, I, I would think that organic, AI free, technology free, digital surveillance free products, places, restaurants, uh, pick anything. I think that's the next big growth area.
I
For
agree, and also not to wait for people to give that to you, but also to use what you're having. We've got many theaters in this network, museums,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
concert halls, and they are looking for ways to differentiate themselves, for new funding models, for
mm-hmm,
new business models, and
mm-hmm,
what you're talking about. I really also do believe that that is the future. I noticed human made. I saw somewhere, and I was like, yeah, human made. That makes sense.
mm-hmm,
And also, based on what you just shared with me, I had this flashback to when I studied tourism and travel, like ages ago, and we talked about when tourists go, and a lot of tourists come to a place, and they basically erase everything that was native and unique and authentic about it, and then they, far away but still at home, we used
mm-hmm,
to call it. And we talked about the zigzag zone of where the tourists come and they might meet some local people, but it's always in the zigzag zone. They never see behind it. And what we're seeing right now, and I think AI in particular, and because there are obviously a lot of other technologies, and when quantum computing comes and robotics and all of that, but that's a different matter because AI in itself is such a big thing. What I'm hearing on the back of what you're saying is this is a similar situation. It's like AI is now being the tourists, or AI is being the settlers, like eradicating, or getting rid of everything else in its way. And just like the local people have to figure out ways to preserve their traditions and their culture. Sorry, this is like a long
mm-hmm.
rant. I'm trying to find the word for it. What I'm after is this. This is actually a call to action after this call. And also, I might actually tune in to some of my friends from the tourism field, because we actually do have models and systems for how we preserve culture when other cultures are coming in and trying to take over. And I have a feeling it's a
Mm-hmm.
little similar situation here, because that's what you're saying. How do we preserve what's uniquely human, our culture, our traditions? How can we make sure that we keep that, but also roll with the flow of where we are in times? And the most successful countries and cities and regions, they're able to honor the past, be in the present, whilst also be future forward facing. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. And I wrote about this last year, about tourism as a form of soft colonialism,
Yes.
especially where I live here, and we get overrun every year. I can't even walk my dog some nights because the sidewalks are filled with people, and they deserve a vacation. But
Mm.
sometimes it's as simple as someone coming to your beach and stacking the rocks, grabbing all the rocks and stacking them, which on our island here, that means that the turtle nests are being disturbed. The sea turtles, we have no jellyfish here because the sea turtles eat them, and we love our sea turtles, the careta careta. They're beautiful turtles. And, people moving these rocks around and stomping all these things are making it harder for those turtles to survive. And so sometimes it's as simple as something ecological like that, but in a lot of cases, it's sort of the Disneyfication of everything, where culture gets packaged into something that's served up as a commodity that's not authentic. And I see that happen a lot. But I think to roll back to what you were saying, in many ways, AI is its own form of colonialism. It's sort of AI itself is like a colonial power. These big AI companies are colonial powers. Here's an example. It's not arts, but my wife is a psychologist, and she was talking to a psychologist friend in the United States last night, and they were talking about how big tech companies and private equity companies are building their own mental health online capabilities, some AI, some human, and those same companies are also buying, they're paying to Google and others to make sure that they come up first in the web search. And so in the places where, let's say you're an average mental health professional and you put an ad in there, or they all have listings, right? There's listings for mental health professionals. Well, the listings push the individual operators, individual people down to the bottom, and the corporate sponsored ones to the top, right? And so what's happening is it's a colonial sort of arrangement. They're slowly pushing all of these very experienced mental health professionals out of the picture. So, artists, dancers, theater people, it's happening to everyone, right? I mean, we're feeling it especially in the arts, but it's happening with psychology, where humans are being pushed out of the way. There's a few humans that will work at these companies that are paid slave wages. I mean, they're paid almost a minimum wage. Someone with a master's degree in psychology and a bunch of experience being paid minimum wage, and eventually to be probably replaced by AI. So imagine, and if you've seen any of the results of how mental health works for how AI works for mental health, it's not very good, right? Don't you want a human doing that? So, I think it's a form of colonialism. We're watching it take over music, art. I want AI to clean my floors. I don't want it to paint pictures for me. I want to make paintings, and I want the AI to sweep the floor, not the other way around. Right?
Yeah. I was thinking of wax on, wax off suddenly. I'm thinking also there is a lot of distraction going on, a lot of noise. And I find that very often in conversations about AI and new technologies, we often talk about, or there is often talk about, the tactics or like the individual things instead of the pattern, the bigger pattern recognition behind it. Where does this lead to? So the colonialism that we talked about, I think that's 100% real. There is this seismic shift happening. And I'm wondering, since we are here after all to empower cultural and creative entrepreneurs, freelancers, anyone working in the creative fields, who are also working with citizens who might not want to be professional artists or creators, but they are there to provide a service to help them find their own expression, whether it is dance or music or visual art or whatever it might be. I'm just wondering, what do we make of this? Because as a creative entrepreneur, for instance, you're being told you need to, use AI, use these new technologies because you need that for ideation, to create your offers, to market yourself, lead generation, sales, the delivery, and stats and metrics, and how to scale and leverage up. This is all well and good. The problem with that is, yes, it's super great. You can build your micro niches. You can sell a lot online. You can sell 24/7 in all the languages. So that's good in a way. But on the downside of that is whenever you put your stuff online, as we know, then it's being trained on everything that you put on. So then also it feels good in the moment, but you're losing also your own IP, your own copyright, your own ownership of what it is that you have. So that's one thing I'm wondering about. How do we navigate embracing technology without losing our souls as cultural entrepreneurs? And also, secondly, how do we create safe spaces for people to express themselves fully, suck at what we do, not having to work with it, but just because we are humans? So it's like a big philosophical question, but it's also a very practical one. Here and now, in June, as we're recording this, moving forward, what is the best step for creative entrepreneurs and creative professionals to take, in your opinion, and based on the data that you have?
Ooh, big question. Big question. I think I'd go back to something from the UN report on AI and culture. And that was that human creativity should shape technology, not the other way around. So I think that's a starting point. Doesn't mean you can't use it as a tool. The thing is, if you are using AI, you have to ask yourself, am I using AI as the tool, or is AI using me as the tool? Am I really charting my own course? So I think, I think there's something to be said for the mandatory labeling of AI content. And for companies, I think I'm waiting to see some companies be honest and say, yeah, we use some AI here. Yeah, we use AI to do this, because people will assume you have, right? Almost everything now, people assume, oh, that's got to be AI. So I think on the one hand, if you want to build trust of your customers and your potential clients, having some honesty in there, yeah, we used AI for some of this. And I think, we have to give people a meaningful right to choose. Some people might say, that's great, human stuff's great, but I really like this AI music. Okay, fine, go listen to that. But I think we have to give people a meaningful choice. So I think some things should be designated as AI free. Just, think of how we protect heritage sites and language and ecosystems. I think there's some things we need to choose as a society. What are the things that we will not surrender to machines or to the market? And so I think for an entrepreneur, that's a decision you have to make. Look at your business model. Does your business model rely on AI? And does your business model rely on AI to carry most of the load? If that's the case, how sustainable is that? How sustainable is that if people? I feel a big backlash coming to AI. You can feel it. I talk to friends in the United States all the time where the data centers are going up so fast. People are protesting and making complaints to the state legislature and the city council to say no data center. People are fighting it actively. And so I think that's the thing is, if your business model relies a lot on AI, what happens in 2027 or 28 when in Sweden no one wants AI? What happens to your business model? So I think a more sustainable business model will rely more on human energy and human thought and human creativity. You could probably do a lot short term with AI, and it can help. But I think in the long term, I'm not sure it's going to get us there. Because I think, we as a society, we're still deciding what we want this to mean, what we want this to be. We're only realizing that we want to set some boundaries because we can feel that we're losing something, right? This is the sad thing about humans, as imperfect as we are. We don't get serious until we start losing something, right? We're not very good at anticipation as a species, right? It's just how we are. But I do think something we need to decide what will be human only. And so I think the labeling is a big thing. I think being honest about having some AI, but but all this is human. I think people are expecting that, right? And part of being an entrepreneur, being one myself, is can I anticipate what people are going to want next and make sure I'm there with it? And I think people want to know that because right now there's so much AI slop that people are being turned off on the entire market as it is.
Yeah, I've also had several emails and DMs lately where I'm being approached by people who say, oh, I like what you do, or I love what you do. In fact, have you ever considered having AI, clones or AI avatars? In fact, I've built one and I've trained it on all your data. So I can just show it to you, or maybe if you want that. And I'm like, and I've seen this from also, from influencers and other experts, where they are being approached by people who already built AI bots that are trained on everything and then basically want to sell it to them. But again, we live in very fascinating times. And I know I had someone on this series, Arts Dynamics Talks, I think it was last year, I can't remember exactly the date. And that person said, everything that we're speaking of cultural firewall and also cybersecurity and safety. And that person said also everything that we talk about, our voices, our movements, what we look like, even where we're broadcasting from Greece, I am in Varberg today, all of that can be tracked and measured. And the person said, everything that's online can be used, and also when it falls into the wrong hands, there is nothing stopping. It's nothing stopping that from happening. It's already happening. And I'm thinking also, speaking of the cultural firewall frame here for today, many artists and creators, they are outside the box. They do challenge systems. They speak truth to power. So if technologies can then obviously give us, they can grant us, they can elevate us, it can also tear us down. So from your perspective, because you are in so many different bubbles, if we were to SWOT to this quickly, like as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, what are you seeing? Both, the bridge between the cultural and creative and tech and AI, some of the strengths maybe, but also if we could just walk it through. I would love also because you're an entrepreneur as well. So what do you see there?
Well, I think, look, we're talking about technology, especially artificial intelligence, in a negative sense in this conversation, primarily because society has not made a decision yet about what we want it to do. Right, and when I said at the beginning, how can we allow technology to enhance human flourishing? So here's an example. There's a company in California called Unanimous AI. It's run by Louis Rosenberg, who is, to me, he's the Albert Einstein of our time of good uses of AI. And he has designed something called Swarm AI that basically is it's an AI mediator to mediate discussions between humans to allow them to reach better conclusions as a group, that more people feel good about the decision afterwards because of the way it runs the discussion. And I've taken part in it, and it's fascinating. I did it 2 years ago, and we were choosing like who would win the Champions League and things like this. And what was most remarkable to me about it was some of the studies they've done on how it works. Is they've used it for the UN to reach agreements on projections for famine and use of food, and where they need to ship food to prioritize. And what was amazing was the majority are usually going to get their way, but it's what happens to the minority that doesn't get their choice. Because if the minority is very dissatisfied with the majority outcome, then it's very difficult to implement anything in society and do it. What I like about what Lewis is doing is this system allows people to interact on an equal basis, right? You could have the Prime Minister of Sweden, and you could have a person living on public assistance in the same conversation, and they're equal in the conversation. It's remarkable. And what was great about it was the people who did not get their first or second choice in the decision, they were more satisfied with the outcome. They believed in the outcome. They found a way to say, well, I guess that's the best way. I guess that's what everyone wants. It's different from taking a poll or up or down voting. So there are ways that AI can allow humans to reach agreements better, to do all kinds of things better. I'm sure there are people who are working on how to use AI to enhance the arts, to enhance all the things that humans make. So how can AI become our loyal assistant and not our boss, and not our puppeteer? Because what I fear is that with not only AI, but social media and the other things, and the curated reality we live in, is people living inside their own Truman Show, everyone living inside their own Truman Show that they didn't design themselves, but believing they have free will and believing that they're living a full life, and maybe they're not. So I think, my friend Lewis, I call him my friend, I interact with him a few times. I would love to call him my friend, but he's more someone I deeply admire and have done a few things with. But what Lewis is doing there with human agreements or disagreement, I would love to see more of developments for how AI how can AI be something that an artist or a musician or a theater producer wants, that does not diminish human creativity, that enhances human creativity? How can that be done, right? Every one of these tools can be used for good or bad. It can diminish human cognitive self-determination, or it can enhance it. We've had a lot of what erodes it. We've had a lot of degradation. It's time for the flourishing. Let's see the systems that can help us flourish. Is there someone listening to this podcast now who's maybe already working on a way for this technology to enhance human creativity? I'd love to see it.
Boom. Yes, we do. We want to hear from you. Post a comment below, both below the replay podcast and also this live stream. Let us know. Get in touch. I also would love to know, as you said, it's also about, creating the future we wish to see. There are a lot of opportunities and greater opportunities as well opening up on the back of AI and new technologies. So I guess it's a matter of how we balance it. And how we make it work, and also from a monetization point of view, it's getting increasingly harder to generate an income, especially in the old ways of doing things. And public grants are going down, public funding is going down, especially in democracies and in the Western world. Whether other parts of the world, not so much. They are actually focused more on arts and culture as a soft power, as cultural diplomacy, because they understand and recognize the power of culture, also to further their brand abroad, I guess. So those were some of the strengths. It's brilliant. And we have actually covered a lot of weaknesses as well. But is there anything else you wanted to add to that from your perspective? And welcome to more listeners as well live. We'd love to have you on here. It's a great conversation we're having with Chris today. So we're talking about the SWOT, the intersection of creativity and tech and business for impact. So what were the weaknesses that you see?
I think the weaknesses are what we've already talked about. The weakness is that we just kind of let it happen. That because it makes us feel good. We have an AI makes us feel good. And it allows us to do our work easier, and we think it's saving us time. I think the weakness is losing our cognitive abilities, losing the ability to think for ourselves, losing the ability to. Now, remember what I said earlier about the binary choice that social media was putting us into? And then you amplify that with AI that's curating what we see. When I go to the ballet in Athens, or I go to an art museum and I'm looking at a canvas, I'm considering it, I'm contemplating it. If I walk into a museum and just say yes, no at every painting, I'm not experiencing anything. I'm not learning anything. That art isn't moving me, even if it's human made. So there's two things happening. There's what's produced by AI, but there's also how AI and persuasive technologies are changing human culture. It's the human culture being changed that is changing the audience for art and culture as it is. So if I'm again, I go back to the test. Can you take a bite of food and not decide if you like it or not? Can you consider it? Can you think? Can you sit without it judging? And how long can you do that? I would tell you that most people today struggle with that. I would tell you our grandparents might have had an easier time because their culture was not being shaped by technology the way ours is. So to me, that's the weakness. Is it's not just the ability to make cultural outputs, but it's the impact on our human culture today that's making it more difficult for someone to even appreciate what we do. How many people do you talk to, Sofie, who say they can't even read a book anymore?
Yeah.
As someone who writes books, that bothers me.
Yeah, me too. That is huge. Opportunities then. What are some of the, also based on this conversation, and also because you move between policy advising governments, EU, NATO, I'm curious to find out what they are asking you about. But also, so maybe even, in those conversations, and then the cultural and creative industries and creative entrepreneurs, where do you see the opportunities moving forward? Is there a way even for them to meet, the defense secretary meeting with an artist, or, using AI in combination with a physical book? How does it work? Where are the opportunities?
Well, I think the first opportunities are, if you're an entrepreneur, what is this cultural moment telling us right now? What people need and want? If the landscape is filled with AI slop, what do people hunger for? people want what's real. If you go on LinkedIn anytime and you see it's filled with AI produced language, right? Now, I get it for a lot of people. If you're not a native speaker of the language being used on that LinkedIn channel, I get it, right? You might need that help, but it's everywhere. And so sometimes, and this is the other thing, people want what's real, and they know it's real because it's not perfect. So maybe, and I taught yoga for many years, and I still teach yoga. And one of the things I would tell my students was, give yourself permission to not be perfect. You don't need to be perfect today. You give yourself permission all day, all week, all year, right? Because part of what makes things real and human is maybe they're not perfect. Maybe they reflect an understanding that's not complete. Maybe their language, command of the language isn't perfect, but that's what makes it real. And so it's almost like now if you go on LinkedIn, the person who's writing something awkward, but who is real, is getting more attention. People want that. So think about politicians, right? Let's take politicians. Politicians are usually, they speak perfectly, they look perfect, their hair's perfect, their clothes are perfect, their voice is perfect, right? And then along comes a politician who speaks, they don't speak perfectly, but they speak in a real way, in a very real way. People gravitate toward that, right? And so I think this is what we're seeing today. So what kinds of products, services can be real? Can people feel is real? And I think there is a market for that. So I think that's an opportunity there. What's real? For what people will want, real music, real experiences, real interactions, because they want something meaningful, right? People, humans, we need food, we need oxygen, we need water, and we need meaning. So where's that meaning? There's opportunities to provide meaning. There is a deficit of meaning. Let's deliver some meaning, and I think people will go for that. When it comes to how do we get, the SecGen of NATO and some artists together, I think that's a great place for Louis Rosenberg's Unanimous AI. I honestly do. I would love to get a super diverse group of people, and they don't all have to be big, powerful people, in one of his settings to see what that, what does that discussion look like? Let's take a simple question of what role do we want AI and other similar technologies to have in our society? Where do we draw the line? Let's have that conversation. Let's use an AI designed to help us interact in a way that's more healthier. Let's use AI for that, to help us decide that, right? There's opportunities there. It's not all a dark. It's only a dark picture if we do nothing.
Yeah, this is great. It's like challenge accepted. Let's just do that. I think that would be so cool. And finally, swatting, and then we're about to slowly but surely wrap this up. I know we're going over time a little bit today, but this is such an important conversation we're having because the cultural firewall runs through everything we do, both within Arts Dynamics, but also in society as a whole. Arts and culture is important to, as we said, and you've addressed it beautifully today, Chris. Why it is important to preserve creativity, to strengthen also the experts in creativity, which is very often the musicians and artists and creators. But it's not only for societal resilience, but we also need to find out how we navigate these times of change and also where the opportunities lie. We know there are a lot of challenges and also threats. So we will actually do a little bit of a deep dive, a final one into the threats. We've talked about many threats today. Is there also, again, given where we are in time, we've also got election coming up in Sweden. There is a lot happening in Europe. I won't even go into all the details, but what are the threats and let's do it from a cultural entrepreneur perspective for cultural entrepreneurs, but maybe also for a nation, for society, if we lose the entrepreneurs and the creators so that they cannot sustain themselves financially. Where are the threats there with that perspective? Unless you want to add something else, of course.
I think it goes back to something I said earlier, that artists hold a mirror to society. We rely on artists to interpret the human experience for us. We know, science fiction is about the very essence of what makes us human, right? That's the good science fiction I try to do, is about that. Art, music, what is the human what is the experience of being human like? And it speaks to us because of that. And the best art that people really go for does that for us. It expresses the human condition. It holds a mirror up to society so we can see ourselves. Think about some of the great books that pointed out labor, cruel labor practices or racism or all kinds of things. Artists did that for us. Think about the great protest songs of the 60s or the new ones coming out today, especially in the United States where they're needed by people like Bruce Springsteen, holding a mirror up to society. And so what happens if no one's there to do that? What if no one's doing that? What do we lose? What we lose is the ability to learn and grow. We lose the ability to realize we're making a mistake and change course. And that's something we don't want to lose. For me, that's, if we lose that, then that means we're going to go into some dark corners and we're going to stay there for a long time. And I don't know anyone who wants to live that way.
Yeah. So what can we then do about it? What is the action we can take, each and every one of us, moving forward?
Well, I've talked earlier about we have to choose the future. So on a personal level, it's the decisions we make about what are you using AI for? Are you using a search engine that has AI embedded? That's the other thing, is it's harder to make individual choices now because it's in everything, right? They put it in everything. I used to live in the state of New Mexico in the United States, and they grow green chilies. They love green chilies. Anything you would eat in New Mexico, they put green chilies in it, right? And AI feels like that. There's green chilies and there's AI in everything, whether you want it or not. We didn't ask for it. So if you want less AI in your life, go find things that have no AI. They exist. Like the web search I use is called Kagi, KAGI.com. There's many others out there. I love it because it doesn't give me AI responses. DuckDuckGo, there's many. There's probably a couple Swedish ones I don't know about. So that's the first thing is, let's value what's real and human. Let's see, and when you do use AI, look at the outputs and question them. Test them. Don't just trust what it tells you. Cross-check it. Don't just accept it and move on. Ask hard questions. Say, okay, it told me this. Is this correct? And go back and do your homework. Right? Don't just take the shortcut. If it told you something, do your homework and check it. Make sure it's correct. And what you end up doing is you end up doing the work yourself, right? But I think let's value what's real and human. I think resist the lure of easy agreement. So if you're interfacing with an AI or social media and everyone is agreeing with you, something's probably wrong, right? If everyone's agreeing with you, what's the entrepreneur saying? If everyone thinks you have a great idea, you're already too late, right? So if everyone thinks you have a great idea, it's probably too late. I think the same thing goes for AI. So resist that lure of easy agreement and try to consciously maintain the habit of independent reasoning, right? These systems have been proven to reduce your ability to independently think. So hold on to your ability to independently think, guard it with your life. I think we should insist that those institutions that are supposed to protect us do so, be they our town council, our national government, the EU, the United Nations. We need to insist on that. We want more. We want better than this. We want some proper protections, right? Because if we don't ask our parliamentarians a question, they don't have to bother with it, right? We need to ask these questions. And a big part of the work I do is educating people so they can ask questions. I don't tell them what the answers are, but hey, this is coming. We need to ask these hard questions. And I think the other thing is keep creating. Even if you're not in the creative business, please keep creating. Keep your creative mind flowing. Keep the ideas coming. Keep writing songs that are horrible, right? Because what I remember about songwriting is you write 20 songs and out of those 20, one is okay. Maybe it might be good. Keep doing that. Enjoy the act of creation. It's the most, you can't possibly feel more alive when you're creating. It's one of the most beautiful things about being a human is creating. So keep creating. And I come back to that idea, and it's actually not my saying. It comes from a Nobel laureate named Dennis Gabor. He said the future cannot be predicted, but futures can be invented. And so my idea is let's invent the right one.
Oh boy, what a strong statement, and it's so true. What I also take with me, and thank you for those recommendations, because it's one thing to talk about things in general, but it's also what can we actually make of the thing, what is the actual action we can take after today as well. And what I'm taking to heart is also the hard questions, because also obviously you get that it's like with vibe coding or prompting AI, you get answers depending on the questions you ask. And I'm wondering, Chris, if we are asking the wrong questions, if the wrong questions are being asked, and especially of people, especially when we do have cross-sector meetings, and because I see that more and more within the cultural and creative industries are now meeting with other industries, and are being brought in more and more by politicians and the government and other sectors, especially in defense now and others, because of again what's happening. But I want, sometimes I feel that there are some layers missing, and I can't really put my finger on it, and it might be because of the questions, that maybe they don't ask the right questions, or they feel that they cannot talk openly about it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good one. The one thing I've found it's kind of fun to do is ask someone who is not an expert. Give them an explanation of what you're trying to do, and then see what their questions are. Right? Someone with fresh eyes, they don't know anything about it. They'll ask a question, and it might be something that you've been looking at this problem for so long that you've already at some point decided that's not important, don't worry about that. And have that person will ask the question that you didn't ask, because they don't know as much about it. They haven't been living with the subject or the topic or the idea. It could be your cousin, it could be a friend, it could be someone, but find someone who knows nothing about what you do, absolutely nothing, or they do a completely different kind of work, and show them what you're trying to do, and see what questions they ask. They will ask some really. They'll ask a few. You'll have to, okay, this is how it works, right? Yeah, okay. But almost every time they're going to ask something that you weren't asking.
Love that. So if you were me, yeah, go on. Continue.
This is where diversity of thought comes in, right? Diversity is not just identity. It's not man, woman, non-binary, white, black, Asian, whatever. It is diversity of thought is huge. So find those people who don't think like you. Find someone who completely disagrees with you and ask them.
Yeah, but don't go to bed when they tell you. You make up your own mind.
Yeah, don't unless it's a really good, unless you have been up too late. I think that diversity of thought. Find people who have no idea what your idea is about, what your business is about, and they will ask questions. They will ask those questions that will make you think, like, wow, or maybe it's a question you had 10 years ago, but you haven't asked yourself again since then.
And if you were me, Chris, and I had you on, and you had me on as you, if the roles were reversed, what would you ask? What is the question I haven't asked that I should ask? What would you ask you? What would you ask?
Oh gosh, you're turning it on me. I would have asked the question. Is there hope?
Yeah. So
is there hope for the future? Is there hope for the future with all these things happening? Is there a reason to have hope?
So let's ask you that question, and I look forward to your answer. Is there hope, Chris?
Yes, there is. We've been through this before. With every new technology, there is a concentration of power that happens, and then there's a slow democratization of it. So think about the first ancient human who created an axe head, right? Maybe, we always think it's a man. Maybe it's a woman. And she was the first one to create an axe head. And now she's very powerful in the village because she has the axe head. She can chop wood and she can produce things. She's very powerful because she has this technology. And this technology gives her that power. But then, someone on the other side of the village in a week or two learns how to make one too. Now they've made an axe head. Now the power spreads. Now the influence, starts to democratize. And 1 year later, everyone in every village has an axe head so they can chop wood or do things, right? This happened in ancient times. This happened in the industrial age. We're seeing it. It's happened in the 30s and 40s with, 20s, 30s, and 40s with things like the airplane, the automobile, steel making. We're seeing it today with the information age, right? So we're seeing this huge concentration. What I talked about earlier, they couldn't even fill one conference table of people who have this great power over us. And there's a democratization that happens, but it doesn't happen by accident. We need to make it happen. We have, as Patti Smith would say, the people have the power. We have the power with the choices we make, the things we buy, the things we say yes to, the things we decide. And these are things that don't even happen at the ballot box. These are not even things that involve a political decision or a political choice you're making when you vote. We are choosing the world we want with every decision we make, right? What do I eat? What do I buy? What electronic system do I use? And I think that is so powerful, right? That is so powerful, the choices each of us makes. We still should, again, ask questions of our parliamentarians, but I have hope because I think people want to live better. People don't want to live the way in the scenarios we've been describing, what we're experiencing today. I don't think people want to live that way. At least I don't think most people. Maybe there's a few who do, right? But I don't think most people want to live in a world where they're not making up their own mind and when they're not free to create things, or if the things they create are owned by someone else immediately or taken from them, right? So if I drew a picture and it was really pretty and I hung it on my wall and someone else could just steal it from me, I don't know anyone who would like that, but that's what's happening now. So I think we're at a point where there's a greater realization of what the problems are. And so we need to ask those questions. We need to make those personal decisions, but it will not democratize on its own. We have to make that happen ourselves. So that is within we have the ability to do that as a society, as a civilization. And that's what I think we should do. And that's why I have hope.
Thank you. Thank you for asking yourself that question. And it brings it home to also resilience and high performance, which is one of the pillars that we're working with within this exponential entrepreneur model that is now being developed within Arts Dynamics. The resilience and what comes to me when you say that is that one thing is society and what others can do, but it's also what each and every one of us can do. And it brings it back home to where we started with this conversation. So this is a nice way now for us to sort of bring it home to close. The individual power that I guess we all have, right? And also what can we do? Who do we want to be? How do we want to show up in the world? And what can we make of what we have? So in that, by taking back control and power, we can change more things for the better maybe than we think. We think that we're powerless, but as a matter of fact, by the sound of it, based on what you just said as well, we have all the powers. We hold all the powers in our hands. Am I correct in understanding that so?
We do. We lose practice using them. We get out of practice using that power.
Yeah.
And when you're the first one in your friend group or your neighborhood to make those choices, it's a little difficult. What do you mean you're not holding what do you mean you're going out for coffee with us and not bringing your mobile phone? What do you mean you don't use AI for this? What do you mean you don't want to go to this film because it's made with AI? What do you mean? So when you're the first, you're a pioneer. So the early people, we have the pioneers. We have the earliest people who make these decisions. It's more difficult, but the more people who make these decisions, the easier it gets. And the other thing is, sometimes you just have to be comfortable not being with the crowd. And most artists, artists already know this, right? Artists are already used to not joining the crowd. This should not be new for anyone in the creative world. we're the weird people who are doing strange and different things. It's not hard for us, but I think for a lot of people in society it is. And because social pressure is incredibly powerful. So the more we decide to take our power this way, the easier it makes it for other people because they will face less social pressure to make similar choices.
Yeah. Yes. And there is a lot of I felt it myself. I've heard it from others, the mental part of what we're talking about, how hard it can be, how lonely it can feel. And it's almost like in Harry Potter, the movies or the books, where sometimes that could also actually be, speaking of cultural firewall and also warfare, that is also a strategy. You break someone down by also making sure that, mentally, mental health wise, they are being attacked. So in a sense, what gives me hope with this conversation is also realization that if we do feel powerless, or if we do feel lonely, or we feel that there's no one else out there like us, just like you said, there are plenty of artists and creators and people who don't fit into the normal norms of society. We just need to open up our eyes and realize, as a matter of fact, there are others too. We just need to find our own tribe and our own people and that maybe that will help a little bit. I hope so. That's at least what we're trying to do here with Arts Dynamics in these talks, to have like a table to come and have a chat. Today a little bit longer than normal, but still, to have conversations like this. I'm so thankful. Chris, thank you so much. Finally, looking to the future, what are you most excited for, looking for? What are you working on, and what can we do to support you moving forward? And also, where can people find more information about you? So what are you excited about? How can we support you? And where do we find information about you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to join you. And thank you, Magnus, for your comment here. I see you'll be on the island next to us soon. So, gosh, you can find me on LinkedIn. As most of my stuff is there. I also write a column for Euractiv twice a month. You can find my writing also at the European Policy Center. I have 2 books out. The first one is seven mindful ways to overcome disinformation. It's a very short book. You can buy that online. I do have sales in Sweden sometimes, which makes me excited. My second book was called The Rest of Your Life, 5 Stories of Your Future. That's a book set about 10 to 30 years in the future. It's 5 different stories about different technology and how they will impact our world and the choices we face. The book I'm working on now I'm about halfway through. The working title is Sentience. It's about a future. It's basically, if I took what all the tech bros want, and if they get to create it, what would that world look like? And then how would humanity sort of push back against it and overcome it?
Can't wait. You have to let us know when you go live. We need to do some sort of a book launch, invite the entire community to come celebrate with you. We'll post some links, obviously, in the show notes below this episode today. We'd be happy to spread the word. With that, we hope that for all our listeners and people who've joined us today, we hope that you found both thought-provoking and new ideas and reflections, but also hope. That's what I take with me from today, Chris. You've answered several of the questions I get from several cultural entrepreneurs when they wonder how to navigate this. It fits very well into exponential being and thinking and doing. And you bring such a perspective that is very, very rare. And I have to thank you personally from me, on behalf of me and this community, the fact that you took your time out of your busy, busy, busy schedule to be with us today. It means so much, Chris. We are so thankful. So I look forward to staying in touch with you. Yeah.
It's such a pleasure to join in. I'd love to come back in the future. We've talked about that already. So it's so great to join you.
Yeah, so we look forward to more of that. And I want to welcome everybody back next Thursday. We're going to have another episode next week. And then we'll invite a member of the member community of the Arts Dynamics to do a member spotlight. We're going to focus on creativity as the core. He's an entrepreneur. I'll share more after this episode. So tune back into that. If you're watching us live, join us on Spotify and Apple on podcast platforms. Let us know what you're thinking. We'd love to hear your biggest takeaways from these talks. These are meant to be a real-time conversation. So this is ongoing. You're always going to be learning the very latest at where we're at right now, here and now. So for us, it is also very helpful to get your feedback on what you're hearing. If you have any wishes for more guests to come on, we know that Chris is a very sought after guest. I've had a lot of questions about you, Chris, and the fact that you were coming and they wanted to know more about it. So we'll definitely bring you back on. And also we have Hannah in a few weeks' time. So with that, dear friends, thank you for your time, and see you back next week. Chris, again, thank you, and over and out.